Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another Cosmic Cuppa with Jude. So I'm very, very delighted to have Stone Hobbit back this evening. It's our third attempt at this lovely chinwag that we're going to have, because we had storms and all sorts of things going on previously. So now we're sweet to go, and I'd love to welcome you back, Stone. How are you?
Thank you, Judith. I'm great, and it is awesome to be back. Yes, we are going to get through it this time. You know, we fought all the forces to be here. We're going to make magic today. We're going to make it work.
We certainly are. The magic's already happening. I can feel it. So to start with, I'd like to read out your bio again for those people that might not have heard it. So that's lovely. Thank you. So Stone Hobbit calls herself a navigator of multidimensional quantum transmutation. That says so much just in that little sentence there. Navigating frequency signatures, she says, is what I do. Connecting you to your higher self-awareness, deprogramming forms of spell casting, guidance in building the tools needed to manage and transmute negative experiences into positive energy. Through this journey, she has experienced child trafficking, abduction, satanic ritual abuse, sexual abuse, home invasions, pedophile cults, MK Ultra, stuck state programs, complex post-traumatic stress and anxiety disorders, which I'm not surprised about, night terrors and out-of-body and near-death experiences. She was a victim of the ACC Exist Strategy program with family bloodline genetic manipulation, just to name a few. She is a lifelong experiencer and survivor, from abductee to contactee to ambassador, walk-in and hybrid. She is a motivational speaker, author, radio and screen host, advocate, QPT, phlebotomy and psychology. As a multidimensional intuitive frequency, she has ongoing encounters with dimensional beings, orbs, plasma spheres, light beings, shadow beings, parasitical entities, greys, reptilians, shapeshifters, ghost and residual energies, along with regular craft sightings. So if that's not enough to contend with, we have her here to talk about some of her life. So Stone, it's lovely to be able to chat with you again on Cosmic Cuppa. I'm delighted that you could take the time to be with us. And last time we talked about your early childhood, and I don't want to replay into too much of that this time, but could you just please give a shorter interview on what your childhood was like? Kind of wrapping it up without going in too deeply, please.
All right. I will, and I just want to correct, it was ACC exit strategy.
Exit. So exit that was
strategy. Yeah. Basically, I grew up in a family that was connected to Centrepoint pedophile ring. My grandfather was involved in New Zealand politics. His role was going to China and introducing them to come back here and live immigration back into New Zealand. But for where I came from, what I was seeing behind closed doors, because there was a lot of parliamentary meetings off the books in my grandfather's billiard room, wasn't just immigration. There were a lot of other things going on behind the scenes. As I grew older, I realized that the magnitude of the connections that was going on and what I'd been involved in was a heck of a lot more than just child trafficking, pedophile rings, satanic rituals. I grew up on one side with religion, the Catholic religion, going to church regularly, behaving, doing all the, you're a female, this is how you were raised, this is what we're going to expect of you, to the ritualistic side of it, of this is, you're owned, you're not yourself, you do not have a self-identity, you are owned, and we'll do whatever we want with you. If you get through it, you get through it. But I've seen stuff that because I don't have names, because of the programs that were used with me, everybody was aunt and uncle. It was yes, sir, no, sir, 3 bags full, sir. It was, everybody was connected. If you try to run away, you get dragged back. If you tried to let somebody know what was going on, you could guarantee the teacher that you went to was actually connected to the pedophile ring. And this is how it was for me, right down to the bus driver, right down to later on it became the sons of the perpetrators were aware of what's going on, so they demanded their pound of flesh. And this is how the circles go. This is how it continues going on. When they busted Centrepoint and stuff, everybody was disbanded. Just before it happened, families were flown over to Australia. We were one of the families on the plane with other families and flown to Australia, different locations. Just because they disbanded it didn't mean that that was the end of it. These little groups of people that used to go to Centrepoint were now spread out throughout New Zealand, Australia, Fiji, England, and the list just kept going on. So wherever I went with my family, and it did feel like we were gypsies for a while because we never stayed in one place too long. I think I counted something like 20 schools in from 5-year-old until I was about 14. When I was 14, that was it. I did two lots of correspondence when I was in Australia. I came back to New Zealand, then I went back to Australia. So I was born here in New Zealand. I'm bred Kiwi. There are so many different areas of it that I have seen, like a whole year of no communication with any of my biological siblings or family members that were in Australia. I had to be sent back for a year. And later on through my life, I've gotten to see celebrities, politicians' daughters and sons going through the same programs. And I didn't know what it was. There was nothing special or different about me. Why would this be going on? But later on, I discovered bloodlines, family bloodlines. I discovered that there was so much more to what was going on. And it wasn't just, this is who I am, I was born into this family. It was actually a hell of a lot more than that. And 90% of the people that I speak with and I have anything to do with in my classes or groups or wherever I go have some form of connection with paranormal experiences, off-world experiences, some form of abuse, some form of programming, some form of indoctrination. Through this process, I have gone, I looked at my job history, I looked at my training history, and I'm like, wow, everything is led from one passage to the next passage. And even when I was doing psychology, out of nowhere, I ended up doing phlebotomy, taking people's bloods. But it didn't just stop there. I ended up working as a lab technician. I started asking questions of what's this in the blood that shouldn't be there? And because I wasn't qualified, I didn't have a golden star, I wasn't allowed to know. I had to go and pay another $10,000 for study before they would give me that answer. But that's not how my brain worked. Okay, my brain was like, no, if you want to know, you go out there and you teach yourself. You find your answers. And so through that process, I've been put in areas to be a professional student. Always teaching myself along the way. Never give up. Never give up, no matter what they say to you. And I've fought psychology, different levels of psychology. They have said to me, because you went through what you did as a child, you have this label, this label, and this label. So I decided, well, I needed to know what they were talking about because I didn't know. Here's another group of people talking about me, but they're not telling me anything. Every week I'm going to them and I'm giving them information and they're not doing anything for me. I'm just having to constantly relive. The wounds were so much psychologically that I was finding myself in a wardrobe with my clothes over top of me and the door closed so nobody could find me. I used to hide just to get away from the voices and stuff. And when I realized how I was hiding, I was also locked under the house. I was put in different areas not to be seen, not to be heard, come out and only speak when spoken to. There were so many areas of torture that I'd went through as a child, not knowing, not realizing that they were actually tortures, because this was what I grew up with every single day. This is what I believed everybody else was going through. So there was a big part of it where I didn't speak out about all of the things that I was going through because I believed everybody else was going through them. That was the manipulation, the programming, from my father, who was my handler, from my mother, who was the groomer for him. They got something out of it, but I didn't know until later on down the track what it was. I didn't realize the families that I married into, how they were all connected. And then when I found out, it was like, when is this stuff going to end? Then I discovered what individual targeting was, targeted individuals, TIs. And then I started seeing, I was working as an advocate for, it was called Mothers of Mercy. And basically it was women who were coming out of the church. They had relationships with partners who were in the church system and they were being abused. These women were being abused because they had to play a certain role and they were wanting themselves. They were trying to, they knew that there was a hell of a lot more to life than being a servant. So there's so many dark areas of it. I stood up several times to step forward and say, hey, look, this is what went on, only to discover the government covering and condoning the actions of the perpetrators, watching how my siblings decided not to step out of the boundaries because they were still there. They were still involved in those circles. And I mean, we're talking about, I had a home ovation as soon as I stepped forward and I ended up, pretty much paralyzed for 6 months. I had an injury that took me 15, 20 years to recover from physically. And in that time, that gave the medical industry hands-on. So there was always those stuck states, both physically, psychologically. There was always being, targeted, being watched. There was never any freedom. There was never any breathing space. There was always chaos, chaos, chaos. And then one day I said, no, I'd had enough. I'm stepping out. And as soon as I did that, the orbs came in. The UFOs started showing up. We had plasma spheres coming into our yard. Now, we had helicopters flying around, watching, seeing all this stuff going on. So for anybody to tell me that the government isn't aware of UFOs and other life beings here in New Zealand, well, I know that straight up. They're telling lies. Okay, I know what I've seen. And it hasn't just been me seeing them. And it hasn't just been at night. It's been during the daytime. The neighbors all saw them. I mean, I made sure that I got to a stage where if I saw something, I'm going to make sure anybody else around me could see it as well. So, and this is how it was. I started saying, I'm sticking up for who I am. I'm speaking out. And if you see something, speak out too. Because if we keep sweeping it under the carpet or closing that closet door, it's always going to stay the same way. If you always do what you've always done, you're always going to get what you've always got. So out of the blue, this voice said to me one day, are you 100 monkey? Which one are you? Well, I didn't want to be the 0 at the end because I wanted to count for something. I'd done enough work to actually mean something. So I didn't want to be the one in the middle because nobody wants to be the one in the middle. So there's only one at the front, and that's number 1. So I guess I had to be the leader. So I had to lead by example. So I started changing everything about me, all my perceptions, the way I saw people. I started asking questions that people didn't have the answers for. And I actually felt quite good about that. And this is where it's ended. It never ends, but I'm here today. So I hope that's a little bit of an intro to I didn't want to go too deep into the darker side of it, but I do a lot of work. I call it shadow work. You have to do your own shadow work first. And when I was able to do that, I was able to recognize the same shadows in others who have also gone through what I've gone through. We need to be able to do that. We need to be able to say, hey, look, this is not mine. I want to send it back to who created it. You know, there's so many levels to what's going on and the programs that are out there, right down to the words that we use and how we use them. So, yeah, it's a fantastic reality that we are in, and we can turn it around anytime we want to.
Thank you so much. I honour you for your journey to forgiveness and healing, and I can tell by the sound of your voice that you have done so much work on your journey toward healing. For a lot of people, it would not be that, I'm not saying it's easy, but it wouldn't be that easy in the telling and the way you've told it. And more power to you for that, Stone. And I commend you 100%. It's a life not everyone has known, but it's a life a lot have. And to my way of thinking, the more people that know that there is help, that there are things that can be done to release from that, then something great has come of it.
Oh, yes.
And that's a wonderful thing.
I just want to say, it's like, when it comes to the shadow work, I may have gone through the journey that I did, but for me, where I'm at now, we've all got shadow work to take care of. So in saying that, it comes down to the basics. It's like going to a meeting, an AA meeting, or, you know, and just breaking down who you are, why you're doing the things you're doing, what you want out of life, and which direction you're going to go. It's about listening and finding out. And the biggest thing of all is self-discovery, self-awareness. You know, we have identified with a straw man identity, okay? You know, a design that is not who you are. You are not your name, all right? You are not your feeling state. You're not the feeling state that somebody else puts you in. And when you can separate all of that, including the ego and everything else, and say, hey, I'm going to have a conversation with myself, and I'm going to be 100% on it. And then you get that 100% response back from your inner self, your inner voice. You then have some direction. I'm not saying that we're not all the same here. We all find a different path, but we get there in the end. Never give up, even on the worst of worst people. never give up. There's something inside them that makes them tick.
Beautifully said, beautifully said. And we do have the shadow side that also needs looking at it. We can't be the Pollyanna just looking at the light and the fluffy and the bubbles and the balloons. It's taking all of who we are and examining all of that. And, you know, I said to someone, yeah, well, quite a while ago now, but it stuck in my mind. I said, well, I've got this onion I've been unpeeling for so long. And I said, I've either got a damn big one or I've got two of them sitting side by side.
Yeah.
Because they're still, you know, you think you've visited something and dealt with it and comes back again. So obviously not. There's another layer to go down and down and down. And it is a discovery. And I think to keep the curiosity, I was talking to someone about this today, to keep the curiosity alive, the curiosity of a childlike state is beautiful, because that's who we are, to have that curiosity for life and learning and wanting to find out so much more about life and all it is a beautiful state.
I look at everybody and find something amazing about each and every single face I see, because at the end of the day, we're all versions of self.
Yes.
I can't go through everything that you've all gone through, and you can't go through what I've gone through. But at the end of the day, for my experiences, if I come to you with my authentic self, the authentic expression of what I experienced, and you do the same for me, then we can find commonalities. And we can take it from there. We can grow from there. We can grieve those parts that need to be healed so we can move on from there. But if we don't do it in our 100% authentic self, we're not going to get anywhere. We'll stay in the stuck state, the stuck design where we're at right now. I mean, I'm talking as a populace. You know, you just look up and you can see there's a control of what they're spraying in the sky. We are the pest control, you know, the weather warfare. Everything out there that we're hearing and seeing has been done before. It's been repeated. You know, this is a repeated cycle. If you wake up in time, you might be able to do something about it. You know, we are waking up in mass about just how strong we really are, just how powerful we are as a light. I look at us as a frequency signature, because at the end of the day, I'm not this vessel. I'm in this vessel. I've got to take better care of this vessel, because it's going to get me, you know, I want to learn more. Otherwise, I'm going to have my memory wiped. I'm going to have to repeat it all again. And I'm not doing that.
Very wise words. I love the word you also used, authenticity. One of the biggest journeys in life, I believe, is to be the authentic self. Because when we drop all the scaffolding, all the armor, and we are in our authentic self, then we're being real, and we can be real with others. And it's allowing others to be real, whether they want to or not, with us. And hopefully they do.
If you pick up, I mean, we've all done it at some stage. We've told little white lies, or we've told big whoppers, or whatever. If you look at that, that's training, that's program, that's taught to us. When you turn around and go, well, I don't want to do that anymore, I'm not getting anywhere with it. And then you go to tell somebody something and you catch yourself. Okay, that's the first step. You catch yourself and go, no, I don't want to do that. I'm just going to be blunt. I'm just going to say it. But you can learn to say it with compassion. So therefore, you don't need to give any BS. You don't need to make up stories. You don't need to exaggerate anything. Your journey, your experience, your adventure while you're here is absolutely amazing. We have to realize that we don't need encouragement from our parents or those around us. We already have it here. One of the areas that I worked in the shadow work was I had to heal my inner child, that inner infant that had all these abandonment issues, all of this trauma that it went through in the very first couple of months of life. I'm not that child. I'm an adult. I can take care of myself. So therefore I have to go back inside my head and go, well, these are what I'm looking at. This child is going through these different feeling states of emotions. Well, I'm going to reach in and I'm going to bring that child out and I'm going to give it a hug. I'm going to give it all that love and attention that it needs. I'm going to make sure it realizes that it doesn't need to feel like it's going to be abandoned because it's here with me. It's always going to be here with me. So that child is no longer abandoned. And I'm going to watch that child grow and blossom, and I'm going to be with it all the way through. So somewhere along the line, I designed this big giant window. It was a two-way mirror, and I'm standing on one side, and I've got all these other beings lined up with me, and there's something traumatic over there taking place. I had left my body. I'd stepped outside of myself. I had OBS, okay, out of body experience. And I'm standing there and I'm looking at these, and I'm perplexed at the fact that I am seeing myself experiencing this trauma, and these beings are standing there watching it like it's a blimmin' TV show or something, and they're not doing anything about it. And I'm like, well, why don't you do something? And one of the beings, the tall being, said to me, why don't you? And I tried to, I couldn't move. I was fixed. I couldn't get through that two-way mirror to do something about it. But I didn't let it end there. Later on in life, that image never ever left me. So when I was able to recreate me standing on the other side of that mirror, I was able to smash that mirror. I was able to find a way through that mirror and pick up that child and protect it. And this was me realizing I was doing shadow work. I was actually picking up the pieces. Throughout my lifetime, you can tell by the dream states that you go into. I personally say we never sleep. The physical might have a rest, but the brain is constant. We are in other dimensions. We're working in other dimensions all the time. And so in my dream state, I'm out there and I'm always being, in the younger days, in my childhood days, I'm always being chased by something. I'm always trying to protect myself against something, or I'm trying to protect somebody else and save somebody else. And one day I stopped doing that. I started going, okay, well, my grandmother said to me, you can give everything to somebody else and get nothing back. If you turn around and give them your shirt off your back because you think they need it, you're going to be the one that goes cold. Unless you have the skills to be able to go out there and get that plant and weave it into a fabric and then turn it into something that you can wear to keep you warm, you can't give away every piece of you, right? And so when she said that to me, it was like, wow, the lights went on. And I started realizing that I was learning how to do the old skills, the old, plant material, the runga, the medicines, the spirits were talking to me. I realized that I was actually in 24/7 communication with all these other entities, not just my, personality disorders, multiple personality disorders. We're always in a form of communication. We're always communicating with our environment. Even when you sit there quietly and you think you're meditating, you're creating a frequency, and that frequency is rippling in your environment. So you're already interacting multidimensionally within that frequency environment. So what you create is what you're putting out there, what you're living in, what those around you closest to you are living in. Now, I wanted to stop all the chaos from happening. So I put a sign. Some of you would have heard this. I put a sign on my front door saying, Dr. Dr. Ama, AMA, doesn't work here no more. Do you put that together? Drama. Okay? Drama doesn't work here anymore. Then I said, remove shoes. One day I was asked, why do we have to remove our shoes to come into your house or your whare? And that is because when you come into my house, you're coming in with your true soul. Okay, where's your soul? Your soul is at the bottom of your foot. So when you step into my whare, you're coming in with your true self. And we're going to have a true self-to-self conversation. You won't be able to tell me any lies or rubbish because I'll see it before it comes. Right? And this is what I put out there. Anybody who comes and says, hey, has a cup of tea with me or whatever, this is how it is. And this is how it is in all the conversations throughout the rooms and the groups. You have to be your authentic self. Step into that first. Try it. If you're out there and you have to, if you're in a circle of friends and you feel that you have to exaggerate to be somebody, to be heard, to be seen, you know, you're in the wrong circles. Okay? You know, peer pressure is a real thing. Even it does, you never left school. Okay, we're always learning. You never left school. You always have to perform, to be something, to be somebody else. When you meet somebody new, suddenly you're a different person. You know, so you're always practicing that I'm going to put on another hat today, or I'm going to wear another mask. You know, you don't need to do that. You be you. Be you, because whomever you are interacting with is a version of you. So be the best version that you can possibly be. And the only way I can say to do that is be authentic. That is a very powerful magic.
Beautiful. I've had so many thoughts go through my head on questions I could ask within that framework that you've so beautifully enunciated. But one of the things we talked about just before we came on was about the organs of the body. Now, could you please talk a little bit about that? I found that fascinating with what she was saying. We were talking about the heart being one of the major organs of the body. Can you tell us a little bit about that, please?
All right. Back in the day, when I decided, okay, well, I needed to do so, I needed to change, I needed to better myself. I was on 22 different forms of medication, right? And I was a mess. I was a mess. And I was like, well, how do I stop this? Because if I go to the doctor, he's just going to give me another pill. You know, none of this is working. It's just masking one thing after another. So I started weaning myself off, and I started hearing myself. I started hearing how my heart was working. I started hearing how my kidneys were reacting, or my liver and my lungs. And I was like, okay. So when I get one organ, there's power in the words we use. All right. That's the only key. That's the only hint I'm going to give you right now. All right. So if you look, our skin is the majority organ of our body. It's a receiver, it's a sender. It picks up signals 24/7. We don't listen to what the skin is telling us. Oh, we got goosebumps. Oh, the hairs are standing on end. What does that mean? Oh, I don't know. I better put a jumper on. Right? Boom. What kind of fabric are you putting on? What kind of stuff are you masking, covering up your senses with? Right now it's cold outside, but you got the heater on inside. You're all hot. You're all nice and warm and toasty. You go outside, you get a little bit wet. You're going to get a cold. You're going to get a flu. You know, heaven forbid you get something else. But if you run around barefoot and you sleep near a window, you build up your tolerations. Okay, you get stronger. I used to suffer from asthma as a child, right? Just one of those things that they say you have. And their excuse was we had to go to Australia because you couldn't breathe properly. Yeah, right. Anyway, now I sleep on the floor, that far off the floor, next to a window. Why? Because the temperature of the window actually, I'm acclimatized to the cold to a certain point. And this stops me from getting the flu because I've built up my immune bodies. I'm not out there taking different types of medications to build up my immune system. I eat onions every day. I do probiotics, fermented foods. I make my own sauerkrauts. You know, I went plant-based. I was listening to what the body was saying to me. You know, one day I went to make something with flour, and I found a really hard part in the flour. And when I contacted the company, I ended up, I don't know where I ended up, but I ended up, and it was all over the news, that there were bones being ground down into the flour all over Auckland. So I was like, okay, that's it. I've got to stop. If I can't get oats to grind myself, then I don't have flour. The bread I was eating was making me sick. So I had to change my whole outlook on what I was putting into this organ and how I was communicating with it. The heart was telling me stuff. So I started eating parsley to thin my blood, right? I started having blue garlic to cleanse my blood. Now I was a phlebotomist, so I actually had the privilege of watching living blood cells. Now, for me, it was absolutely, mind-blowing. To watch a living blood cell, I got to see that there is a rhythm inside the center of the blood cell. There is a glow around the outside. I call it the auric field around the outside of the blood cell. It has a job to do. It travels around the system. As it ages, it clumps up with other blood cells, and they share their energy together until they dissipate and are absorbed or flushed out by stem cells, right? So I was looking at how the body was working. I was doing anatomy. And that was working alongside of the herbalism, the alchemy. I was like, okay, well, my organ is telling me I need this. By now, plants are communicating with me, right? I'm talking to an aloe vera who's upset because I've moved the kiwi fruit vine away from it, and they had been entangled with each other. So I had to put that kiwi fruit vine back next to that aloe vera, and they were happy again. You know, I felt like I was going crazy with all these things that were talking to me. You know, when you're in your house and you see these orbs coming in and they're flying around you, and everybody else can see them too, you're not so crazy. So then I realized, you know, there's more to this heart organ thing. I started, okay, well, I'm going to communicate with the heart. The heart plays a certain tune. I then started listening to my kidneys and all the other organs and discovering that they all have their own tune. It became, this was the planet. The organs became the countries, the continents, and each continent had its own individual peoples, and they all spoke different languages and played different instruments. And when you fed them the right stuff, they produced a harmony or the right chemical, which would then be used and filtered by the next organ or the next country. And then I stepped outside of that and watched the harmonics come together. I went 52 days fasting, no food, just liquid, just water, coffee, apple cider vinegar, salts, and I did it. Everybody said, no, you're crazy, you're going to die in 3 days. Well, I'm not going to recommend that you do what I did unless you get to know yourself. Now, I'd already gone through the sun gazing, the breathing, the urine therapy. I'd done all of these other things before I got to the full-on hardcore fast. I recommend that you do a 3-day fast, but as long as you stay hydrated, because in that 3 days, within that 3 days, you are producing, your stem cells are going to come out, they're going to clean up the mess in your body, they're going to dump the junk, you know, they're going to repair what's been damaged, and then they're going to move on again. And you're going to feel like at first you're going to feel, and then all of a sudden, boom, full of energy. And this is how it works. We have forgotten how to live, okay? We have forgotten that we don't need 3 to 5 meals per day. After I did the fasting, I went on to what is known as OMAD, 1 meal a day. And once a week, I would still do at least 2 days fasting. 1 day is unnecessary. Next day, it's almost food, but not quite. It's still liquid form, like soups or juices or that sort of thing. So then you move on, and then you get into this pattern where you're feeding your senses. You're communicating with your organs. You're humming at a different speed. You're picking up your frequencies, and you're noticing your hearing is different. All your senses become acute. You know, the smell, the taste. The taste is amazing. When you stop eating for a couple of days and then you eat, wow, it's like, oh, the first time I ate after 52 days, I just bawled my eyes out. It was like, oh my God, I remember food. You know, you could actually taste the essence of life within that fruit, that, you know, you knew exactly where it's going to go, which part of your organs are going to enjoy it. Now, when I got to that stage, basically it was the heart works here on 3D, terra firma, okay? Boom, boom, boom. Then the other organs have their purpose in the other dimensions. So if you look at our chakras, they all come with a different color representation. Now, to me, these color representations are the connections to the dimensions, the densities of where else we're working in. If one day you go to your closet and you go, well, I'm going to pick out a blue shirt, I need to wear a blue shirt today, but then you pick up a pink or a purple or a color you don't normally wear, that's because there's a dimension that's saying you need to do some work in this area. So when you step into that area, you'll go, oh, I've got an ache over here I haven't had before. That is because that area is requesting you pay it a little bit of attention. We don't pay our organs enough attention because we're in this 3D model, but we are also living in a multidimensional reality. Every layer of our auric field is that dimension that we are also inhabiting. When I know everybody that's come here on this channel has had some experience like deja vu or paranormal or something, some form of encounter. These encounters happen because your frequency is recognized, or you recognize the frequency of the dimensions that you are working in. I have been able to map out the beings that I work with when I'm in these different dimensions. I will get messages come to me when, like, the night terrors that I have, okay? I don't really call them night terrors, but because I have a different understanding of them. It's a night terror is the label that somebody else put on it because they didn't understand it. Their understanding came from somebody else's limited stuck state. What I'm giving you is, I got the messages letting me know I was going to have a night terror. I got all my equipment ready and everything, and I told everybody I'm going to have one tonight. I know I am. I feel it. So I set up the cameras and stuff. 2 of them didn't work. I managed to get an audio recording. And when you hear this recording, it sounds like someone stabbing me to death, right? I'm screaming. But in the actual state, I was having a conversation inside a tube with a tall white grey who I've had encounters with in the past, communicating with me. And so that barrier, that density of tube, when our voices echoed through that, it came out differently. It was picked up differently. That showed me in our reality now that if I treat myself a certain way, I'm going to attract a certain fallback. So if you can see yourself standing there and you've got your auric field around you, because you're producing those harmonics with your organs, right? Each organ is producing a harmonic for each of those levels of auric field. So now you've got your density wall. You say something negative to somebody on the outside of you, it's got to go through, it's got to ripple through those densities to get out there, to get to that person. But it's going to affect you first. And then it's going to affect you on each of these dimensions before it gets to that person. So when they say to you, be careful what you wish for, be careful what you say and how you say it, you know, sevenfold, tenfold, threefold. How many dimensions are you active in right now that you are aware of? So I go out there and I look at everybody, this was my way around it, as you're all versions of me. And I'm going to make sure I treat me with the best kind of gratitude, the best kind, you know, the best kind of respect. You know, if somebody says, I'm your elder, you need to respect me, respect is earned. Okay? You show me that I can respect you because you will respect me, then we'll be fine. So for me, it's, I'll go out to the supermarket and I'll see somebody working really hard. You know, they've been standing there all day. You know, they've crossed so many people's different frequencies. They're going to go home and they don't realize the amount of information they've taken home from all these other people that they've worked with today because they've encountered a close-knit, you know, it's the same with anybody when you sit on a bus, when you sit next to somebody in a car, when you sleep next to somebody in a bed, your fields are going to cross. They're going to cross over. And you're going to start picking up little tidbits of somebody else's daily work. And I'm not saying it's just, oh, they just went out there down the driveway, bumped into Joe Blow, and this is what Joe Blow was doing. I'm saying this is multi-dimensional layered, okay? When you go to sleep at night or when you rest at night, you're working somewhere else in another dimension. So when you come back, oh, I had a horrible dream last night, da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da. Well, you've already shared that because you've been in close proximity. And they're going to pick up on a little bit and they might carry on where you were. When you start seeing that we're not just here on terra firma having this 3D experience, we are multi-dimensional experiences, right? And everything that we do has a cause and effect to it. You start respecting yourself and your total environment around you. So your organs are amazing. They are like my other organs are my heart when I go into those dimensions. So if I go into my next dimension, my heart's not going to play a role in that dimension. It'll be my kidney or my liver or my lung, you know, or my skin. My skin is the receiver, the sender that picks up all these different bandwidths that come in and say, oh, knock, knock, knock. You know, you're going to be doing some work in this frequency tonight. You know, we have so many different frequencies hitting us 24/7 that people don't even realize the amount of work that we're actually already doing. I hear a lot at the moment about people saying, I can't sleep. Now, I went years and years without any proper sleep. 3 hours a night is all I needed. I was up doing things. I was constant. And people say you're going to die if you don't get enough sleep. No, I was busy. I was busy. And so it came down to, do you know what you are doing when you go to sleep? What are the problems that you are solving for this reality? Because if you're solving it while you're in your dream state, you're in another dimension doing the same job. Is it you who's doing it, or is it a version of you that you're taking over? One of the things that I do is every now and then I'll have a vision. I get a lot of visions. I get a lot of dream journeys and shamanic journeys, you name it. We've all have the abilities to do this. It's just, I call it a form of communication. When we start tapping into the forms of communication that we have, you'll suddenly go, oh no, I'm clairvoyant, or I'm a medium, or I have this ability or that ability. Well, we already do, okay? We already are all completely telepathic, but we're not giving ourselves enough credit in, oh, I just thought what you thought. Well, that's telepathy, okay? Oh, a feeling state. Is that telepathy? Well, if you both have the feeling at the same time and it happens, yes, that is a form of telepathy. So when I see shadow beings, and at one stage I was seeing hundreds of different sorts, animals, people, you name it, I was seeing it, right? And people saying, you're crazy, you're crazy. But when you see a being step through your wall and others can see it too, and there's a light behind them, but what you saw before they stepped through there, they weren't that form. They were more solid form like we are now. But the density when they stepped through, it was like, okay, well, they stepped through a portal, you know, but it was a weakness in the density that they stepped through. When they realized that they had stepped into our density, they stepped back. It was gone. They were gone. It was over, right? I was sitting on the couch one day in clear daylight, about lunchtime, had a friend sitting on the couch with me. We're having a conversation. It was a sunny day. The front door was open. It was a glass door, but it was open. We turned around because we heard a noise, and just right in front of us came 2 or 3 of these shadow beings walking straight past us. We didn't say anything to each other. We're just like, what are we looking at? Walking straight past us out the front door, as if they knew where the front door was, and we could see their reflection of shadow walking past the glass door and out, gone. And we looked, what did we just see? We jumped up, ran out there to see where they'd gone. We couldn't see, they're gone, poof, gone. You know, I've had people arrive at my front door and ask me a few questions. I turn to my friend and say, blah, blah, blah. And they've said, well, go and talk to them. I stepped outside and they've gone. My gate had a lock on it. I had roosters that were like guard dogs. You know, there was nobody down the road. There's no way they could have got from my front door out onto the street into their car and gone within that time frame. So there are a lot of things that go on around us and we don't pay attention to. So when you feel like something is happening, the hairs on your arm stand up, or you get goosebumps, or you just have that knowing instinct, listen to it. You get that ringing in your ear. Oh no, I've got tinnitus. It's, you know, the frequency. You are picking up on frequency. Yeah, you know, I started to listen to it because what was happening was a frequency would come in, I would hear it. Sometimes it was so sharp and strong, I would have to duck or cringe or change because it was like an attack. Boom. Then you get the ones that come in and it's one frequency, and then when it goes out the other side, it's a different frequency. And you're like, whoa, those I say are downloads. It's come in as one frequency, it's dropped its package off and it's moved on. And within a couple of days, all of a sudden, you have an epiphany, or your body starts reacting in different ways, or your taste buds have changed. You can see things, smell things, sense things. We're constantly being upgraded. That's how I live my reality. That's how I live my adventure.
Can I ask you something, please?
Yeah,
Talking about the night terrors, how can people work with that in a way that's more conducive to not being terrified?
well, you have to work out, is it a night terror that you're having, or is it just a nightmare? Okay, that's the first step. All right. A night terror is something that anybody close to you will know you're having. It sounds like you're being murdered. Right. It starts off with I've got a recording somewhere. I'm not sure where it is, but it starts out. My ones personally start out as and then it goes into more of a like a death rattle. Okay, I'll be blunt. It sounds like a death rattle. But on hindsight, what it was I was having a conversation. And because I am able to remember the conversation, and you can actually hear there's a conversation going on within the recording. If I hadn't got that recording, I wouldn't recognize it. And I would still be going through this process. I get sleep paralysis when I go into that state. This is one of the things I recognize about the difference between a nightmare and a night terror, is the sleep paralysis, how it makes you feel. Sometimes it started off, I would fall through the bed, right? I was sinking through the bed, and it was going, oh God, and then I was like, I'm going to die. Or I would shoot up out of my body, straight up. And I'd get so high and I'd think, oh, this is going to hurt when I come down. And when I came down, it did hurt a couple of times. And then I practiced landing. Now, this might sound really crazy stuff. And it is. When you come down, just take note of things like, where are you? What is interacting with you? How are you feeling? Are you in control of the circumstances? When I started breaking the spell of what a night terror was, the first thing was terror. Okay, I was in a form of sleep paralysis, and my partner at the time was also in paralysis. We were back to back in bed, but we were face to face when the paralysis hit. I know that sounds crazy, but if you can imagine, you've got your physical is in one position, is a solid matter, it's in one position. But then your spiritual self, we were face to face, right? And we couldn't open our mouths, but we knew exactly what was going. We were talking to each other. And I was able to turn over and look out and see a little figure standing in an archway, which was the bedroom doorway. And at first, I thought it was my 3-year-old son. But as soon as I thought that, I knew that was wrong. I knew it wasn't him. And I swore at the top of my internal lungs, and I'm swearing at this being, you leave my da-da-da-da kids alone. And at that same time, I realized that for me to have that kind of reaction to that, whatever it was standing there, was a little grey, by the way, that was standing there, meant that I had negative encounters with it in the past, right? So when I did that, what I did was I changed the whole frequency pattern, and it knew that I had, and I was able to release myself from the paralysis. When I released myself, I also released that frequency of my partner that he was stuck in. I mean, to hear that two people, and I've searched high and low after that. I wanted to know everything I could possibly find out about sleep paralysis, because I'd only ever heard that one person can have it at a time, but we both were having it. When I went to the churches with it, they told us that we were possessed. It was anyway, moving on. I broke out of that. And so when I started going into that, oh God, I'm going to have a sleep paralysis, I can't move, I would go, no, I'm not going to let that happen. And I would break myself out of it. And it's hard. It's like breaking through a force field, okay? I don't always win. But I'm getting stronger at doing it. I'm releasing myself sooner. Now, the night that I knew I was going to go into one, I had all the cameras and stuff set up, and I could feel this feeling state of this night paralysis going in. As soon as I'd gone into it, I knew that I was in it. And this is the thing when I say mapping your experience, giving yourself landmarks. So when you get to a certain point of feeling state, you can go, oh, I know where I'm at. Or, the rocks over there. Okay, I know which dimension I'm in. Because, for me, I keep going back to the same locations in these dimensions. It's almost like, okay, well, there's a wormhole, there's a portal. I call it a portal, not a wormhole. There's a portal. I know that when I go into that dimension, that's the portal I'm going to come through, or the doorway. That's where I'm going to come out of. And that's where I've got to go back through when I come back in. So you start seeing your landscape around those portals. You start taking note of the signposts. Are the words back to front on them? Which way is the water flowing? Is this like another country? You start finding landmarks. Well, it's the same with the sleep paralysis, the night terrors. And then it's like, what beings are you interacting with? Is it the same beings each time? Because one thing I've discovered through this is it's not the same beings every time. I have worked with several different types of beings who have the same technology or the same abilities to use on us, right? And all I'm seeing is just when we come back in from the terror, one of the things that they do is they'll plant a memory and put us into a fear state, right? Oh, no, but that fear state is to stop you from remembering what you've just encountered, who you've encountered, what you've just learned by being there. And so that fear state will take that away. I said, no, I'm not having that anymore. I want to know. I want to know what's going on. This is my free will. There are rules. There are boundaries. And until you can stand in your sovereignty, there are always going to be some form of being that's going to try to take that away. They're going to try to use anything they can to get what they want from you, your energy from you. So, here on earth, we have this chance, and I do believe that this is why we are bombarded with so many programs, so many distractions, and the programs are teaching us to stay in stuck states. When you start breaking out of that, you get a big force that comes at you saying, no, you can't do that. You start seeing, everybody is attacking you. You get bills from the government, you get people watching everything you do. And then it's like, no, you guys don't mean anything to me anymore. You can't touch me. I know my rights. I know who I am. Keep your nose clean. They can't do anything to you. Stay truthful. Stay authentic. They can't use it against you. Remember the saying, anything you say and do can and will be used against you. Now that's spell casting because that goes against your free will, right? And there's so many areas to it. So when I say I'm a navigational coach, and I transmute energies, we go through the different stages. You learn about the straw man identity. You learn about self-awareness. Self-awareness is not saying, oh, well, yes, I know who I am. It's about going past the name, past the straw man identity. It's going about, it's what is your body saying to you, your body communication. Then what entities are communicating with you? How do you put yourself forward? There's so many different levels to it. Be confident in everything you do. Remember that you're not doing it alone. You're never alone. All of part of the programming, keeping us in stuck states, telling us, oh, you sign here, that's confidential. There's no such thing as confidentiality, right? They know everything before you even formulate it in your brain. Formulate it in your brain. They already are aware of what you're going to do. They watch to see the choices that we make and ask why we've gone down those paths, why we chose that one. What are you doing? Why are you going to do that? Are we going to learn something new from that experience? Right? So you are the creator of whatever you want to do, your adventure. I say to people, I'm on a fantastic adventure. you know, and I love sharing space with anybody who wants to be in this adventure. But with me, it's I'm not doing this alone. I'm not alone. You're a version of me, and I hope you're as good as I am. You know, I hope you're better than I am, because I'm not always good. You know, I'm not always. My cakes don't always rise because I don't use the ingredients that somebody else does. When I give appreciation, when I don't pray, I can't pray. What is pray to me? Pray means I've tilted my head, I've opened up an area to be fed off by parasitical entities. See, with all the beings that I see, they're not all good. And some of these are parasitical forms. And they feed off our lush, which comes from down our neck, our spinal column. You know, like the vampire needs the neck, or so does parasitical entities. So praying, I can't pray because I don't want to get down on my knees and be subservient to some energy that's going to take my resources. You know, I don't, you know, no disrespect to those who believe in Jesus on the cross, but my upbringing was, that's terrifying to me. That is terrifying to see somebody half naked up there in front of me. That's a warning that says, you follow my path and this is what's going to happen to you. You know, he gave his life for all the sins we are going to commit. I don't like that either. You know, I'm not going to do that because of that. No, when I go, I give thanks. I give appreciation for what I'm about to receive, because I want to receive the best affirmations to feed my organs. By feeding my organs the right knowledge. I mean, water holds a memory. So when I have a glass of water, I want the best information I'm going to get from that sun. And if I've mixed it with an affirmation I've written on the side of it, you know, with true, clear intent, phonics is a powerful thing. It's like I am spellcasting the magic for this vessel, and I'm feeding myself that light energy. You know, all of the wounds and stuff I once had, there's always going to be the scars. There's always going to be the scars. But I couldn't get the help that I needed because there was nobody else out there who had experienced what I had experienced. Instead, they just collected the information so that they could go and get funding somewhere else. I don't want to work that way. I don't work that way. Mine is, we are here to work together, to find ways, commonalities, to heal each other, to heal. We're not meant to be like this. We're meant to be telepathic, full-on communication. And the only way that can really, truly happen is if we start by being our authentic selves and being honest with each other.
I love that, darling. And I'm going to stop you there if I may, because I know we have some beautiful slides to show everyone. And we were talking about orbs and light beings, plasma beings earlier. So Leah, are you able to bring up that slideshow, please? And if you wouldn't mind talking about what we have here.
Oh, yep. All right. Okay. Well, this is my main page I use. I flood this everywhere. Okay. Oh, excuse me. So in the right-hand corner at the bottom, that's me with one orb going around me. This is the orb I call my friendly. Now, above me in the picture is my friendly, okay, with the exclamation mark in the middle. Now, I was sitting down one day having lunch with a friend, and my friend said, I'm going to take a photo of you. I said, okay, this is daytime. This is daytime. And when you see the whole photo, you can actually see this orb coming in seven shots. It's in the frame, one frame, 7 times, shows up. And it has an exclamation mark from the front door to where it sits next to me on the couch. So it was showing me that it wanted to know what is going on here. You know, it was like exclamation mark, not a question mark, exclamation mark. What are you doing? It showed me over a space of time that through the colors that it uses, through the patterns inside, it can use our alphabet, our numbers. Sometimes when we look at it, we see patterns, but if you really look into it, you actually start seeing old languages, Mayan languages, you know, Egyptian languages. You see different rune numbers. The one next to it at the top, that looks like it's opening up. It is opening up. That is what I call an orb ship. Okay. That is a ship. That is it looks like an orb come into our dimension. It's opened up and a smaller orb has come out of it. So it is like a mothership and it's sent out a small craft. The next one next to that, you can see a face and it looks like it's got ears. Now, for a very long time, I thought it had ears, pointy ears. And then this is one of the thing about these images, you know, you can take a photo and you look at it and you go, okay, well, I can see that and that in it. But if you keep looking at it and you've learned what you think you can only learn about it, something else is going to show itself. Now, one day I was doing an art class and I blew my picture up of this face, okay? It's a gray Zeta Lyran, hybrid Lyran Zeta, looking at me. And now I have this regular visitor I call the flasher, which is the one that you're looking at in the picture there. When I blew it up, I realized that I was looking at 3 creatures looking out of a portal window at me. And I was blown away by it. They always seem to turn up in 2s and 3s. All right. Now this one is my flasher friend and has been with me for a long time, as long as I can remember. Yeah, at least 30 years. Now, the one at the end there that looks like 2 people, if you look at the 2 orange ones in the middle, down the bottom there, they are orange plasma spheres, right? One is an orb plasma sphere, which is more of a spiritual dimension, comes from a dimensional aspect like the top 2. And the bright orange one below the face is more of an external off-world craft that is also a living entity. Now, that orange sphere there came through my bedroom window and morphed into a figure of a being standing at my bed. The room was lit up. Okay, we had the light on, it was clear, anyway. He moved down the side of the bed till he got to the foot of the bed and split into 2, morphed into 2, one bigger and one smaller, okay? Giving me the masculine, feminine feeling like I knew them. I knew them. Anyway, coming along the side of the bed, they remorphed into one figure and then came up the other side where I was sitting and leaned right over top of me. And as it was leaning over me, it took on a skin texture from the neck up, forming the chin, coming over the face, until it got to the eyebrows, and it was a familiar face. And I freaked out. I screamed murder, and I bolted out of the room, okay? I regret it. I regret doing that, but it was the fear factor that crept in. Now, this is the thing. This is how some of these beings use the fear factor. If you've gone through stuff in your lifetime and it has left some form of terror or fear imprint, it can and will be used against you so that you don't get all the information. I ran out of the room thinking that the facial image that they were using was my partner, who had at the time gone for a walk And I thought the worst. I thought that they had been in an accident or something like that, and this was their spirit coming back to let me know. Later on, you know, I've had years to work through this, and these orange plasma spheres still keep coming. They've come in daytime. I've got photos of them coming, hovering in the yard in the daytime. And in one of them, it looks like, you know, it looks like there's a whole set of photos where there's beings inside the ship, inside a round orb ship. It looks just like that. Anyway, I realized later on that these beings, the reason they took on the face was it was familiar to me. It wasn't, there shouldn't have been any fear factor. It was going to communicate with me. And because of the fear factor, I broke that occasion. So I haven't had that straight right close to me since. But I know it will happen one day. And before this happened, I had a total stranger come to my house. She'd been parked across the road a couple of times, and I saw her there. And then this one day she plucked up the courage and she came in and she said, "I've got a message for you." And I'm like, "Yeah, come and have a cup of tea." She goes, No. She says, "I've got a message from the solar beings. They're coming to visit you." And I'm like, "Okay, solar as in sun?" And she said, "Yes, they're the sun people." And I'm like, "Okay, thank you." Didn't see her again. And I waited and waited, and I had all these weird thoughts that there was people coming from the sun to visit me. And then these light beings came. So, and because of the amount of orange plasma ships that were coming in over top of the house, I mean, they were coming in daylight. They knew when we had seen them. They knew that we knew they were dimming out. We could see them cloaking and moving around the sky. This is in West Auckland, by the way. We chased them. We followed them. We watched them morph into different shapes and things. They came down so low that if we'd had a broomstick, we would have touched the inside of the bigger ship. There was like, what would happen was the orange plasma spheres would come in. It came down into our courtyard, and it went across, hovered, and then it went up over the water tank. Now, to tell you how big the water tank is, I could get on a chair and then climb on top of the water tank. So it's not that high for me to get on. And I'm what, 5'4"? Keep that a secret. And we looked up inside the ship as it hovered above us, and it was like all these balls of, you know, all these spheres of orange plasma light, like what you could see in front of the fence going past down there. And they were all tucked up inside this ship, and you couldn't see it from the outside. It was like this ship, this bag-like shape. And the best way we can explain it was like if you went and did PE and you picked up all the basketballs or netballs and stuck them into a bigger bag. That's what it was like. All right, best way I can describe it. And then it flew off. But we had a lot of communication from them. Even down here, we've had it. Now, the other one is me standing when the orbs started to come in, when they first started coming in and showing up around me. I realized afterwards in other photos that had been taken, orbs have been around me ever since I can remember. But when I really started paying attention, this is when they started showing up in mass. Now, with them, when they show up in mass like this, their energy is actually absorbed by other beings showing up as well with them. They don't come alone. So in the bigger picture of this, you can actually make out a creature that's almost, 8 foot tall, leaning over top of me. So yeah. How's that? Next one.
It's amazing. It is amazing.
I have so many. It's just absolutely crazy, I'll tell you. Okay, we'll start with the one on the corner again, right-hand corner. See that blue speck?
Yes.
Against the table? That is a blue orb, okay? It's just come in, it's flashed, and then it's gone. Now, this is off a video in daytime. I hopped out of bed and I looked up and my whole room was sparkling. And I'm like the sun came straight in through the window. And you know, I'm like, said to my partner, can you see that? Can you see what's happening in our room? And he's like, yep, just gets up and goes on about his stuff. And I'm like, well, if I can see it, because these were orbs. These were orbs. They were coming in, they were hovering, and they had their own life force. They weren't just dust particles moving around. They were coming in, they were flashing, and they were zipping here and there and stuff. And it's a video I've got. So, you know, anybody who wants to see it, just hit me up. I will send you a copy of it. These orbs were coming in. There were so many that came in. They came over to the curtain and they morphed into a little being. And I'm like, wow. After that, I started seeing more and more of these orbs turning into little creatures, right? People call them fairy folk and stuff like that. I'm not worried about the terminologies. Now, the next photo next to that is a black headstone, black gravestone. You go to the cemetery and it's not there. It showed up in my photo. I went to the office. This is Waikamete Cemetery. I went to the office and I said, look, you know, this is the lot. Can you tell me? Oh, no, we don't talk about that area. I'm like, okay. So I learned there was a dark history to a certain part of Waikamete Cemetery, and this showed up in it. The next photo, I'm cutting through it as fast as I can. The next photo is of me at a medieval, I don't know, convention. There were no camera, there was no lights. It was no electricity. It was all candles. And a friend said to me, "Oh, I'm going to take a photo of you." I said, "Okay." Anyway, I was having a conversation with my girlfriend next door to me, and my friend who took the photo let out a sissy scream and ran off. And then later on, she sent me this photo. This is only part of the photo. But if you look at the photo, you can see my face clearly looking away. When you look at the face looking straight at you, it has box glasses. It has a goatee, okay, a little beard and a moustache, right, and a big chin, like a really, you know, hairy chin. Anyway, before I met my partner at the time, he had lost a friend of his. And when he showed me the photo that he had of his friend, that was the same person. There's no doubting it. It was the same person. So his mate hitched a ride, is what I say. The next picture to that is who I call the Ancient One. And the reason I call her the Ancient One, and I did a sculpting of her behind me actually, was because when she came to me, this is one of the shamanic journeys that I have with the guides come in. She said to me, the first thing she said to me was, "I'm not a Naga and I am not a mermaid. I am known as an Ancient One." And so I wrote all the details down. And I started writing in this different type of text. And when I started looking for the text, I found that it was an old language. It was an old language. I haven't done much more than that with it. I spent 2 years researching and finding out information and writing down every aspect that I could see, because they don't come to me just as one being. They come to me in packs. When I say packs, two to three at a time. She was with 2 others, and she showed me her, you know, it was like, you can't fight with some of these creatures. You just can't. We just got this much energy compared to what they've got and what they can do. And they have to show us that they mean us no threat. And we go through our fight and flight stages initially when we have these encounters with the beings that don't look like us. And this is one of the big things that I see with a lot of encounters is, oh my God, they're a reptilian, or oh my God, they look like this or that. But they're not always bad. They're not always bad. If your frequency is of a certain nature, then that's the frequency that we're going to interact with. or you're going to interact with. And until you can see that they're not necessarily that frequency, and until you change yours, they may not change theirs. Because just because you think they're a threat to you doesn't mean that they don't think you're a threat to them. All right. So moving on to the next one was, I was at the cemetery again, and this was a shadow orb that showed up, and it was in front of us everywhere we went, because I used to use Waikumete Cemetery as my walking route. That was my park. I'd walk around there, and I've had a lot of different encounters at the park, I tell you. All right, jumping up to the one at the far left-hand side. On the outside of that doorway out there, there was a person. Now, this person showed up to me as a light being. When I first met them, I was wearing my purple cloak out of marae. Now, I didn't know the significance. I just go where I just end up going. And there's some strange stories attached to that. Anyway, he said he was going to show his true self to me before I left. And I picked up the camera. I looked over out the doorway because I was about to take some cup of teas out. I was on a marae doing the cooking and stuff. And I turned around and I saw him, and he was looking at me, and he was a light being. So that's what that story behind that one is. The blue light bulb. See the blue orb down, the first one I showed you? Well, I was getting a message that I was going to have a night terror. And sometimes the orbs would come in and let me know that I'm going to have dimensional accessing later on that evening, right? And so I was like, okay, so I'm in the room, and this blue orb comes through the wall, like the one that's down at the table, comes through the wall, and it's hovering there, and then it goes up towards the light. And just at that same time, I switched the light on, and I think I captured it. It went into the light turned blue. I took it to an electrician. He said, sometimes these light bulbs do this, but he says, I can't tell you what the stuff is inside it. There was like flotsam inside it. It was full of it. So I kept it as long as I could before it got smashed, but I took some photos. The next one is a woman standing there. This was a total stranger. I got asked if I would go and do a reading and, do a night tour and look for some ghosts and orbs and stuff. And I said, yep, all right. So we went out to these people's place to pick this lady and a couple of other people up. And in the time, I took some photos, and the orbs that were showing up, they were magnificent. They were communicating with me left, right, and center. It was like I had to communicate with one particular one to give a message, and it wouldn't leave me alone. It's like, it's like that annoying fly that comes up to you. Well, anyway, I said to this woman, I said, can you just stand still for a second? I've got to take a photo of you. And so I took a photo, and I got this orb that started to manifest. And later on, I said, I've got to show you this photo. This is for you. And she's just burst into tears. And I'm like, oh, no, what have I done? And she said, that's my sister. I recognize her. I'm like, okay. I know this sounds crazy when you haven't got a physical body, but when something is trying to make its presence known, you will feel the energy signature, right? All right, moving on to the next one. I wasn't taking a photo specifically in this direction. In the fuller picture of it, I'm actually taking a photo of an old wire fence around a grave. And it wasn't until I got home and took the photos off the camera that I saw him standing there. So on close inspection, there's a man standing there. You can see where he's got a long coat on. He's got his arm tucked into his coat. You can see his pants are separated, the black pants, very fine line right there, with a grey vest with a white collar. He's got a long ginger beard. You can see where his hair comes down the back, and he's got a top hat on. There is another entity on the other side of the stone, but it was him I was more fixated on. I went back to the Waikumete Cemetery and I got the guy's details. It turned out the stone the gravestone you're looking at right there was his. So yeah, they show up. Now the last one on the corner there, I lost my 10 and a half month old son to cot death. And I had an encounter with light. This is quite a long story, so I'm just going to break it down really short. But what showed up and showed itself was my son walking down the steps with Jesus Christ, and I thought it was angels and the whole works. I was calm and all of this. This is before I'd done all the other work on breaking night terrors and recognizing other entities as they came in the room and things. Anyway, when the experience, I broke myself out of the experience saying, no, because I'm going to wake up dead. I'm not going to, they want to take me with them. And I pulled my hand away from my son at the last minute. And then I'm like, no. I want to go back in. I want this experience to happen. And as soon as I said that, boom, the room filled up with light again. And I'm back where I was. But this time I knew that my face was down in the pillow. I knew I was lying on my stomach. And yet spiritually, I'm sitting upright, looking out my bay window at the light that engulfed the entire room. There's steps there, and both Jesus and my son were coming down the steps again and waiting, but there was something wrong. There was something that wasn't cohesive anymore. And the more I thought about it not being what I thought I was looking at, it revealed itself. It was a tall grey with a short grey, and I said, thank you for showing yourself. After that, when they did try to use the illusion of people that had passed that I knew, or images, imprints, it would be broken just like that because I could see through it. And I have seen other people think they are seeing and interacting with spirits of loved past members, only to be greys using the illusion of the memory. So that's what that was. So yeah, hope I haven't popped anybody's bubbles.
Actually a pretty hard one to take, I
Yeah.
would think, particularly losing a wee soul and then thinking it was him you were seeing. Maybe you were the first time, but obviously the second time that was not the case.
The feeling state, the frequency, everything was the same. So the first time I saw it, it was an illusion. It wasn't him. It wasn't him.
Wow.
So yeah.
Pretty to play, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I've had an encounter with Jesus, and it wasn't like what I had with my son. It was different. So you get to trust in what you are seeing, because it's not always what you think it is. Okay.
No. Sweetheart, we've got about 5 more minutes to go. So would you like to discuss what we're seeing here?
Okay. Down the bottom two that look like creatures. One is called handlebars, as you can see, and the other one we call the fairy. It's jumping out of my hand. Now they were orbs. All right. They came out of an orb like the first one I showed you that was opening up. And then they use the energy around them and they turn into creatures. All right. So they're my fairy folk. The next one is a friend's head, bald head, with an orb, and it has a face in it, and it's got eyes, and it's like, what's going on here? The two top ones, one is in a house of a friend, and it's one orb that showed up 3 or 4 times. Now, this is the thing about orbs. People think that they're getting hundreds and hundreds of orbs in their photos, when in actual fact, they're only getting 1 or 2. You can get one orb showing up to 8 times in one frame, right? It's the speed they move. The other one is daytime. I'm going for a bushwalk. And this is my friendly. This is the golden color that my friendly normally turns up in. Now, in the house, the orbs in the house next to the friendly, it's the same orb. Okay, that's my friendly. It's the same orb. So you can see that it's not my camera playing tricks. The amount of photos I've got with, you can see it moving through the room and around the room. That is not a problem with my cameras. I've had 5 cameras, different cameras. I've still got all of them. Just to clarify, my brain wasn't having an issue with the camera. Okay, so there.
Yeah.
Okay, move on.
Maybe if we do one more, if that's
yeah.
okay.
Well, we can end at any time. Oh, okay, all right. Okay, I've had an apparition of a woman standing at a window. I've had both the blue and the red dragons raise up out of the ground. This is another spirit journey. And when I had that, I didn't realize that what I was experiencing was a Kundalini experience. All right, the dragon Kundalini experience. Then you see the grey alien. You've got the pictures there that I've drawn. They're my pictures of what my grey Zeta Lyran is on the side there. There's actually 3 looking out the window, not 1. Okay. I've had the hands. The hands came at me one day and ripped me out of my body until I was at, until all that was left, the attachment was attached to my foot. It was literally like the Peter Pan being ripped out of his body. All right, that's what it was like. Now, the other one is the one that's waving out there like that. That is an orb. Okay, they manifest into different shapes and they give you information. The next one is one that I took a couple of years ago now. This is when they started to change. They started showing me that there was nano manipulation going on within other dimensions, not just here. So whatever's taken place here has also infected our other dimensions. So that particular picture there was, I just finished running a course and I said to all my students, I will, because everybody wanted to see an orb. I said, this is what we're going to do. I want everybody to write down a color that they want to see, and they're to go out at the same time, say 7:30, 8 o'clock, whatever its time was. And we're going to take, it doesn't matter what time zone you're in, just do it at that particular time. Go out, think about that orb that you want to see, take a photo. Okay. And then everybody came back and it was amazing. It was absolutely amazing. Everybody got the same orb. All our orbs, there's like 7 or 8 pictures with the same colors in it. Now, my friendly, I said to my friendly, I want you to show up, because I've done this before where I've said to people, yes, you think about a color and my friendly will show up for you in your photo, just to show you there is no time and space, right? So anyway, I said to my friendly, we're doing this thing. I want you to show up in people's photos, right? So it showed me, it turned the tables on me by showing up in everybody's photo with all of this colors. So none of us missed out. So that showed me there was a level of intelligence there that went way beyond me just looking at orbs.
Yes, absolutely. And you've got one at our top right of a young lady.
Yes, that was a ghost of a woman who saved my life. I was in bed. It was after midnight. I'd had a candle on a big stereo, but there's no way it should have caught on fire. No way. My whole room was on fire. I was in bed and my bed around me was on fire. And I heard this woman call out my name, and I sat up and I looked, and there was this woman standing at my window. Now, the location I lived in, you don't go to bed with your windows open, but my window was open, and that's what pulled me out of bed, was thinking my safety was in jeopardy because my window wasn't closed. When I got to the window, I realized I wasn't breathing. I couldn't breathe. And when I turned back, I saw my whole room was engulfed in flames.
Wow.
So I got everybody else out of the house. She saved the whole household of all of us that night.
That is remarkable. Lee, if we could come back to normal view now, please. Thank you for doing that for us. Thank you. So I had so many more questions to ask, but we're going to have you back again if you're open to that another time.
Anytime.
You have written 2 books, and I believe you're writing another, Half-Fire Adventures and Navigating Self-Transformation.
Yes.
Now, it's been an amazing Cosmic Cuppa. Are there any final words you would like to say to everyone, Stone?
I have a meeting once a week called Half-Fire Hangout. It's a Zoom meeting. It's open to all. You can hit me up on Facebook. My email is stonehobbit with the number 2 @gmail.com. My webpage, always under construction, is stonehobbit.com. And I'm happy to chat about whatever comes up. You know, we're all frequency at the end of the day. We're all here to enhance everybody else's adventure. So, and thank you, Judith. It's been absolutely a pleasure again. And thank you, everybody else. Much appreciation for sharing your space and time with me and this fantastic adventure that we're on. Thank you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. It's been so enlightening. There were so many questions flying through my head in between your amazing Cosmic Cuppa with us. There are so many rabbit holes we could have gone down with almost every sentence.
Yeah.
Sometimes several in one sentence. So God bless you. Thank you so much for coming on. And as always, if you're watching this on YouTube, please like, share, and subscribe if you like what we're doing. And as always, peace on earth. It starts with you. It starts with me. So God bless everyone, and good night to you.